Welcome, everybody, to the Anchor Point Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Hammer, and we're talking hunting. If it has to do with hunting and hunting-related issues, we're going to try to cover them all right here on the Anchor Point Outdoors podcast. So pour yourself a hot cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and let's get this show started. All right, welcome, everybody, to Anchor Point Outdoors' first podcast. I've got my son, Kevin, on the TV up there. Got two of my buddies here, Gary Henry and Paul Hoagland. And we're going to talk turkeys. We're going to get turkey seasons basically started here at about a month or so.
Yep.
Or at least mine's going to start here in about a month. So we're gonna talk turkeys. We're gonna try to get it right from application all the way through there. So I guess we can get started. Back 3 months ago, we had to put in for turkey here in Michigan, and we found out here about 3 weeks ago what we drew, and I was lucky enough to draw that first season. I know you guys are doing the third season.
I just buy over the counter the third hunt.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of talk about, when do you really, what do you put in for? I mean, why do you put in for it? I used to always basically put in for that third season just because we did a lot of video on. So it just gave us more time. But
right. You get 3 weekends, and if you worked out great. You had a lot more time and stuff. But
yeah, and I think that the weather that we're having,
big factor.
Yeah. So I've seen it where there's snow on the ground that first week. You always try to push back and try to hold off as long as you can, thinking that winter's going to hang on. And unfortunately, like this year, we've had 3 weeks of snow on the ground. Honestly, I put in for that first season just because of the way the weather was going into the Christmas, and we have to fill it in by February 1st. So I wanted to make sure that, I think that season's I think we're going to have a lot of snow. Hopefully those birds, and they're already out strutting. I mean, we found a few of them out strutting.
Oh, yeah.
So I've seen more flocks probably in the last couple of times with a lot of birds actually just in big groups. I mean, I just seen one just down the road. I bet it had 20 birds. Only one tom, but it had 20 birds in it. And
I've had pretty good luck scouting so far this year. I started at the end of March, looking. And I've seen a lot of turkey sign, a lot more than I have in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So I guess we can get started with that, Gary. And like you said, you've been hunting for 50 turkeys for 50 years. I mean, You've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience through early seasons, of turkey hunting. So I guess, maybe you can start us out with, how you got into turkey hunting and really what possesses you to go out every year. And
yeah, I started when I was about 20, and I worked at Dellfield and Cadillac, and then I lost my job there. They moved out, so I went to Baldwin, and that's when I really, really got serious about it. The people I met there was, Ron McCarty. He was a real good turkey hunter, and I ran into him, and he helped me a lot. And Bob Davison was a good caller. And George King owned a sports shop there, and he did the guide service. And I got to know him real well. So with them 3 guys, they really helped me out. I mean, it really made a difference, They got me going down the right road.
And you just started turkey hunting? I mean, you just started going out with them?
I just started going out with them, and I did that for years. And then, of course, now George has passed, and I'm not there anymore. I'm retired, and so I'm on my own.
Yeah. So you're still beating the 2 tracks, and
right. I've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
But.
So I mean, what is your feeling with the turkeys? I mean, what would you do? I guess if you had somebody new out there, what would you say to them? I mean,
scouting's important to find out where the birds are at. You got to do some scouting. You got to put some time in.
And you said that you hunt mostly federal land, federal and state land.
Yep.
And so when Well, I just say when you're saying you got to put the time in and go scouting, like what are you like for scouting? What are you looking for necessarily? Like what's the sign or what's the indication that it'd be a good spot to set up?
Well, I go and I just ride, and if I see birds, I mark that spot, and then
Mhm.
I look for tracks, turkey tracks.
How do you mark that? How do you say you mark
I
that?
mark them in my plat book.
Oh, okay.
I have a plat book that I mark it in, and then I just continue going to all these places, just scouting, just looking and marking. And then when I find
Mhm.
when my hunt comes, then I've got that down, and I go back to them
Mhm.
areas and check them out, and
Hmm.
then I start roosting.
Yeah, and in today's age too, I mean they have a
Okay.
lot of apps that we've used for deer hunting and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that. But I
yeah.
mean with Onyx maps, I mean that would be a technique that you could
I'm
use.
old fashioned.
Yeah. But I mean for anybody new getting into it,
Oh
I mean
yeah,
there's so many apps, tracking apps and stuff like that that you could actually do that same thing. I know where we live, sometimes you don't have that service.
right.
I mean, but
So one of the big challenges that I can see when you do that, when you find these turkeys, are you strictly looking on public land, or is this private and public?
Private and public. Yeah.
Okay. So
But-
when you find those birds, on private, what's a good plan to try
Well-
to get permission to?
Well, I normally don't even ask. I don't really hunt. What I do if I'm going down the road and I see turkeys in somebody's front yard, I'll look at my plat book and see if I can find a hunk of state land somewhere close,
Okay.
and I'll mark that because I know that some turkeys are going to split up and they're going to move on. So then that way I know I can get to them turkeys by going to the state land. But I normally don't ask permission to hunt on people's property. Normally they say no. So
right.
over the years I just don't do it. I don't hunt it, but I mark it if there's state land around them birds.
And
Well,
how early do you start that? I mean, how early would you actually, like I said, we actually start in February to put in for it, and we know by March. So by the beginning of March, you pretty much know, or like I did. I mean, I think the 11th of March found out. When would you actually, I mean, would you start right away trying to locate birds, or at least when you get access to that?
I start at the end of March because I always get the third hunt. Okay, so I know what my hunt is. So I always started in around the end of March, marking birds, looking for signs, stuff like that. Just riding my loop. I've been riding that loop for 40, 50 years,
Or when you can get access, because if there's snow on the ground.
Right.
But,
Exactly.
so you just start running, beating the roads as soon
Yeah.
as
As
access.
as soon as I can get back in them, I like to start doing it. And that's what I've been doing lately, But
So I think for the people that do find those birds on private property, I think there is a lot bigger opportunity than say deer hunting to gain access. People I think are a little more willing to allow somebody maybe to turkey hunt than they are deer hunting. In Michigan, deer hunting seems to be a lot bigger issue than that, and so it doesn't hurt to knock on a few doors or find out who owns the property, but you got to do that in advance. You can't do it the night before and say,
Right.
hey, do I want to come out tomorrow and try to hunt this bird? Do it in advance, and that's where Gary's scouting comes in. If you know those turkeys are there, I guarantee a lot of people do, but the people that get permission are the ones that are going to have the opportunity.
right, and like most of the birds that I mark at the beginning of the year, they're not around coming to my hunt. They're because don't forget now you got the first hunt and the people that hunts the second hunt.
Right.
So that's why I just continue scouting during the first and second hunt because I'll go down and around the first hunt and still be scouting, and if I see cars where I parked, I don't go back to them areas during my hunt. That's not one of my priority spots because they're either going to shoot the bird or they're going to scare the bird.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. I mean, after you actually scouted a few birds, if you actually went and still scouted during those 2 seasons to actually just see if those birds.
Yes, yeah. That to me, that's probably my most important time to be out scouting, and that way I got an idea where people are at.
So what are you seeing, Gary, when you go back out? I mean, are you running into like a fair amount of people? How has that changed over the year? I mean,
yeah, there's less and less people now.
Okay.
But years back, there were a lot of people. I mean, it was a problem. It really was.
Well, and really, I mean, like I said, even when I started turkey hunting or was able to put in for it, it was tough to draw a tag.
Yeah.
I mean, the seasons were nowhere near what they are now, and to get that first, second season, everybody, I mean, you were lucky to even. Well, you were going to be unsuccessful.
Right.
I mean,
and that's why they came up with the third hunt to open it for 3 weekends.
Right.
Was for more people to be able to hunt. That didn't get their permits that wanted the first and second hunt. That's,
right. Right, and that was 1 week hunts.
Right. Yeah. It was 3 hunts, first, second, and third. But the third hunt was only, like a week and a half, something like that.
Yeah. It wasn't what we know today as basically the month of May.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
No.
So now, is that due to the turkey population increase, you think, that they've been able to open it up to be longer? Because I have seen that the turkey population in like the early 1900s was actually, the turkey was almost like wiped out. It was down to just a few thousands.
Right.
So is that the reason they're able to open it up longer now, is because the population, I mean, maybe the hunting pressure isn't as much as it once was, but as the turkey populations are so high, it allows them to open the season a little bit longer.
There was a lot more birds then when they opened it, the third hunt like that, but it's really went down a lot. But I think they did it for the birds, a lot of birds, and people, like I say, really wanted to hunt. And
but right now, today, according to the DNR, the turkey population is up around 200,000 birds, which they say in the heyday back before the 50s, it was at about 100,000. Then it went down to about nothing. But now they claim that we're back up to 200,000 birds. And so 2 issues there. We've got a decline in the hunters. The actual number of hunters has gone down. And if we truly have 200,000 birds, they're sitting on the most birds that we've ever had. So from their perspective and why we have the hunting seasons, that's why it is.
Right.
So do you think they'll actually open up that fall season again? I mean, I know we used to have one.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they'll open it.
Just you don't think?
No.
To try to control it?
No, I really.
They actually do have a fall season, don't they?
Well, I think. Well, not up in our area, I guess.
Right. It's in certain parts of the state. Yeah.
Yeah. Southern Michigan.
Right. In our immediate area.
Yeah.
See, the problem with 200,000 turkeys in Michigan, you got to understand. In northern Michigan, the bird population is way down. Southern Michigan, Mississippi, you can shoot 5 birds. South Carolina, you can shoot 5 birds. Think about that. One person can shoot 5 birds. Right. How many birds they got? So my point is, southern Michigan's got birds. All these big farm countries got birds. But you go on state and private property, you're not going to see them birds. That's what the problem is.
So you've seen in your core area that you've hunted for years.
It's spotty. It's real spotty, and where they come up with 200,000 birds is beyond me.
Well, I've seen that too. I've seen that, and they say we rank like number 7 in the state as far as bird harvest. So, I don't see that kind of hunts. I know quite a few people that do still turkey hunt. Some of them call them yard buzzards. I mean, some of them don't could care less to even shoot a turkey. But honestly, I have fun doing it, getting them to call. But yeah, it's crazy how I don't see the hunting numbers or people going into it like I used to. I mean, everybody seemed like they always wanted to get out and draw a tag and get a bird. Now it just doesn't. I mean, you can put in like this. I put in for the first season and pretty much thought I was going to have a 100% chance, and I did draw it because it just doesn't seem like there's hardly anybody putting in for it. And I guess I really don't know if there was any leftover license. Didn't hear of any.
I didn't hear anything about any.
You know, I don't know. You can, if they don't enough people put in for that first season, you can buy it over the counter until they're sold out. But I haven't even heard that.
Right.
But,
Yeah. They are, like I said, it's real spotty, you know. And
Well, once again, going by DNR success rates, last year they claimed that there was a 42% success rate in hunters. So once again, and that's actually in the world of hunting, that's a pretty high success rate.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
nothing's guaranteed, and you know the work's got to be put into it. But as far as the number of turkeys, the harvest information, they don't have real strong numbers to prove how that's working.
Right. Well, and I think the biggest thing that I have found with state and federal land is all the clear cutting. All the wood cutting is it's unbelievable. And
well, we've had
the
several
land
acres
is just
around.
going away.
Yeah, we've had several acres around us that they have cleared.
I mean, there's no more select cutting. It don't exist. It's clear cut, flat out clear cut, and that just
Well, and the biggest
shoves the birds out.
and the biggest thing when they do that is from a turkey's perspective, it takes the roost trees, it takes the things that they do as part of their natural habits. As far as the ground, it actually is a restoration project that over time will help the habitat and the animals. But the immediate effect is it's going to make those birds move into a new location.
Right, and the habitat, turkey habitat is. So you know what turkey habitat is? This is what they claim. I don't agree with. I agree with some of it, but some of it I don't. They figure 50% woods, 25% of it has got to be abandoned fields. You know, fields that's not used no more. I suppose that's for grasshoppers and stuff like that. And 25% is active agriculture. You know, cornfields and stuff like that. They don't even mention water. You know, well, I know turkey's got to have water,
Right.
You know,
And you're actually cutting all when you clear cut like that, you're cutting all the mature trees. So any of the nut trees, acorns,
everything.
you're taking a lot of their food.
Yeah, everything. It's gone.
Yeah.
You know,
But like I said, I mean, a lot of the turkeys I find, are on private land. I mean, once again,
yeah, they are. I mean, it's just the way it is. You know, I mean.
Well, once again, as you guys talk about habitat being destroyed in the process, if you think about private land, what do we have on private land? We've got people with food plots for deer. We've got bird feeders. We've got corn. We've got gardens. We've got all these things that people modify their lands to make it habitat friendly, which is a great thing. That's not a bad thing.
No.
But that is where the deer are going to go. I mean, they don't care. They don't have property lines.
But you know that I read an article and they said that the habitat down south is getting bad. Well, I think to myself, of all these big shot turkey hunters and deer hunters buying up all these farms and stuff, you look and see what they do to them farms. I mean, they're really helping the habitat as far as I'm concerned. Really, really good. But I just don't understand where all this stuff comes from. I don't.
So you think, going back to like when you first started hunting and, they planted, back in 50s when they had to reintroduce the turkey to get the population where it is today.
Right.
You think that was because of the forest? I mean, you think that's why they thrived up here? I mean, we had winters. I mean, but the turkey still thrived pretty good.
Right. Well, and I think that hurts them a little bit, the winters, but not now. I mean, our winters are kind of like Indiana and Grand Rapids,
Yeah.
I mean.
But I mean, when you first started hunting, I mean, you hunted back when, like I said,
Oh, yeah.
the winters were still winter kill and stuff like that. I mean, going back to, how you used to hunt them, because like I said,
Right.
I feel most people don't hunt them like you hunted them.
Right. Well, you got to remember too, back just about 15, 20 years ago, the DNR used to really be involved in turkeys. Back then, these people that's got houses that turkeys would come to in the wintertime, all you had to do was call the DNR and they'd bring them corn, help feed the turkeys. I mean, the DNR really helped the turkeys in the wintertime. But that slowly just faded away. They just, I don't know why, but
Just because of maybe the
Right.
population.
The reason and the timing that faded away is when Michigan first had the TB and the tuberculosis in the deer, and they started saying, let's not feed the deer in the winter because we're causing these deer to yard up and stuff, which also was a good place for turkeys and that type of thing. So the perception of feeding animals went the other way.
Right.
And then we went into chronic wasting disease, and now all this has been banned. So unfortunately, the turkeys suffered because of that, because of the deer, because it's pretty hard to put corn on the ground and say, no, deer don't get it, but the turkeys do.
There you go.
And that's a struggle. Hey, Kevin, I know you're down kind of in central Michigan there. What do you see as habitat? I mean, if you had a chance to get around, and just what does things look like down there?
We got kind of a mixture. Like I've seen turkeys, and like there's a lot more fields. I mean, there's definitely some areas that are wooded. It just kind of depends on where you're at here in the central Michigan area. Like there's a lot of farm fields and stuff, and I've seen some. I haven't been able to get out to too much public land. I do know there's public land around here that people do turkey hunt, but I mean, like we've stated in the past, like it's not as it's not as popular of a game to hunt as much anymore, I feel like. So I don't hear as many people talk about going turkey hunting. I mean, it's, deer hunting and things are a lot more commercialized and a lot more popular around here. But I've definitely seen turkeys and things in farm fields and on the edges of some woodlots around here, but not a lot of people that I know turkey hunt down in this area.
No, I know you're a little bit younger than us guys sitting here. Do you think that's kind of evolving? I mean, is that the younger people just aren't getting into it? And I mean, obviously, I know you were brought up. Your dad's a turkey hunter sitting here, but I mean, do you think in general your friends, the people you associate with, is it just kind of a lost thing, or?
Yeah, like I said, yeah, a lot of the friends and stuff that I know that hunt, it's primarily, deer hunting. Not a lot of turkey hunters, which I mean, like I don't know if it's a generational thing. I mean, probably. I don't know what would cause the decline necessarily. I suppose. I mean, you could argue that deer hunting's easier than turkey hunting. I mean, anybody can go out with a rifle on someone's farm field and shoot a deer with a rifle 300 yards away, and I mean not everyone can call a turkey in to 20, 30 yards to shoot them. So I mean maybe that's part of it. Takes a lot more time, and
Well, there's a
I don't
technique.
know. It's
Just like you're saying, there's a technique.
yeah,
How many
Right.
people actually take the time out to learn how to use a turkey call or a
Right,
slate
yeah.
call?
mhm.
Just like you said, and that's a big part of turkey hunting. Is it going to be able to call them?
It's the main part of it.
yeah.
I mean,
And
Yeah,
that's
I think it's like I mean and that's part of it too. I think is just I mean maybe I don't know. Like you said, my generation, I some of them wanted want it to be easy, or I don't like with the way
right.
this generation. I mean, people are working more. I mean, a lot of times, having like you said, I mean, well, having the private land or having access to land is not something that my generation that buying a house and buying 40 acres isn't nearly as affordable as it was maybe 20 years ago. So I mean like I said, you can always go, like Gary said, you see turkeys and maybe knock on some private land, but uh, in more urban or areas, like I'm not in a big city, but people are cautious nowadays of just letting somebody they don't know come and hunt, no matter if they think that they have good intentions or not. So I mean, a lot of times people just like don't go ask for permission because they just know, like they just assume it's a lost cause. I guess I don't necessarily know. I mean, maybe I'm speaking for people that, but I think that might be part of it. I don't,
Well, I think you, I
but
think, I think you
from
hit, I think you hit on something too when you talk about the younger generation. They're kind of geared towards instant success. I mean, everything has to have a
mhm,
reward. There's got to be a participation trophy, or there's got to be something.
Right.
You
mhm,
have to win, and something that takes a little skill. And you brought up a great point when you start talking about calls. To learn how to use all the different calls. Whether it's a mouth call, a slate call, a box call, all the different things that exist out there.
mhm,
You know,
And the,
mhm.
so great question. I'll shoot
right.
this over to Gary. How does somebody start out? How do you learn how to call turkeys?
Well, me personally, I think the best thing is a slate. Uh, it's just easier. A lot of people a mouth call is nice because you don't have to use your hands. But mouth calls are some people gag on them, some people choke on them, and they spit them out, and that's the end of it. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, they don't. And really, there's a lot of people who have a lot of problem with that. So I just say a slate. A slate call is really easy. I mean, you just a little practice, and you can call birds then. I mean, if you can purr and yelp on the slate, you're good.
Well, I think too. I mean, and I did it. And when I was younger, basically, well, younger than Kevin, I was in my early 20s. You're
Right.
watching all these guys call birds, and and you see the tapes. Back then, it was
Oh yeah.
VHS tapes. I mean, a lot of people out there, but you'd get a mouth call, or at least I would, and you'd play the tape, and you would hear it, and you'd try to just mimic it, and then play it back. Even if it was a cassette tape. I mean, they had cassette tapes back then where you could just listen to people tell you how to call, and you just practice. I mean, I've had individuals actually tell me, yeah, do this, do that. And then it's just years of just trying to copy it, or
Right.
getting out there. I've done it with, like you said, with slate calls and mouth calls. Hear a hen yelp, try to mimic, see if you can get it, and just copy them, and just
Right.
And over the years, I mean, it's worked for me, but it's
Right.
just copying those hens and just seeing it, because I think sometimes what I hear is not what everybody else hears.
Right.
I'm thinking, man, that sounds pretty good. Nah, probably not. You know what I mean? So,
Well,
um,
and like you said, it's just one of those things where it takes practice. Like I said, I remember back in middle school and high school, I mean, it'd be, March getting close to turkey season, and you would be walking around the house with a diaphragm call in your mouth, calling turkeys in the middle of the day, just practice, just getting some practice in, because I mean, just like anything, it takes practice. You're trying to
Right.
mimic so that, that you actually sound like a turkey and they don't go running off, because those birds are more intelligent than people give them credit for.
But
yeah,
it's like anything else. The expense is just getting crazy too. I mean, mouth calls. I bought a couple the other day, and they're $9 a piece. I used to buy them for $4 to $5 a piece. It's just crazy.
oh, it's just a markup. I mean,
You,
it
you
just
know,
it's just crazy.
yeah.
Just you put a name on it.
And there's so many people that are making them now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that's a whole new thing there.
Well, and we go talking about turkey calling and stuff, and we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to a little bit, back when you started, and I went to a couple of them, in Baldwin.
Yep.
Um, they had turkey calling contests. You don't see those anymore. You
Nope.
very seldom see a turkey calling contest for anybody to go and really learn from some of the experts in there.
Right.
Like you said, you met Michael Waddell when he was first
Right.
coming up. Before he was
Yep.
really with Realtree, he was actually doing a lot of those calls, and
Right.
Mark Drury and some of those. But it's you don't see that anymore. You don't see those for
No.
those guys Kevin's age, or that generation, to what we had at access because
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Traverse City took that over. I've never been there, but there's a place in Traverse City now that they hold. That's one spot for the national championship.
yeah, but you don't hear about it like
No,
you
not
used to.
used to.
Right.
No.
I mean, they don't. I mean, the last turkey call in Baldwin that I went to, the gentleman, and you'd probably know him, ran it for years, and he basically told me, I mean, before we were doing outdoor shows for Anchor Point, and we were up in Traverse City, and that was the last one I think he was doing because of just wasn't the interest in it, and
Right.
and he was actually, I want to say he was close to into his 70s, and he just
Quit.
he wanted somebody to take it over, and there was just nobody there to take it over,
Right.
so he let it dissipate. And
Yep.
like you said, you'd go there for years, and a lot of, like, would you say his name, George King?
Yeah.
Those guys were all big in that area down there promoting that, and to see that just fade away, just because just generational gap. I mean, the guy just
Well, that's exactly what it is. You know, I mean, it just people's just getting out of it. I mean,
So how do you know, and I mean, I know the DNR's got this problem with all hunting, but how do you get young kids to have an interest in this? I mean,
years back, like I say, Ron McCarthy was really good, and Ron used to have a lot of seminars. And a matter of fact, remember when you first met Tracy?
yep,
You were a member of the Tustin.
Sportsman's Club, yep,
Yeah.
yep,
And we got a seminar and stuff going there. Remember that?
Yep, yep.
And invited all the kids to come, and Bob Davison came, George King came, Ron came, and all gave their time teaching kids how to use calls and stuff. And it works a couple times, and then it just seems to fade away. People just ain't interested in it anymore. And
Well, and we see, at least down south in some states, they have an actual weekend hunt for youth, for
Yep.
turkey. We don't do that in Michigan. We do several of those for deer hunting. But is that something that, the DNR needs to do and,
Right.
have a youth hunting weekend and do something to kind of put the spotlight on the youth and try to get them out and give them an opportunity,
and that's a perfect example. I guess I never thought about that, but that's we have a youth hunt for everything but turkey.
right, yeah,
We don't have, let's say, even if it was the first season or before that first season, let's say it's a weekend hunt before, just like anything else. I mean, but maybe there's something into that. I mean,
yeah.
because you don't have a youth season to get more people in doing
I just don't think you have the people, anymore that are willing to put their time into that. I don't know.
Well, and I think, at least my perspective is when I first started, and a lot of people, like I told you, a lot of people call them, oh, I ain't going to chase that yard buzzard, blah, blah, blah. But it's different to me. I mean, it's not even about getting a turkey. It's not even about shooting the turkey. It's calling it.
Right.
It's like, a lot of people, and I've never been able to elk hunt, but a lot of people associate it with elk hunting and being able to communicate with that animal to bring it in within shooting range. And I guess that's where, if I could just take somebody out hunting, I could care less if I actually shoot a bird.
Right.
But if I could actually go out and call it, I have more fun calling the bird and getting it in than, Tracy's. We've been able to call birds here
Right.
in my own property, been able to call it in and her to harvest her bird. But to me, that's the fun part of it, the communication and getting it to come in and fly down once you get it off the roost.
But the process is what makes memories.
Right.
The killing's the end result. The
Right.
process makes the memories.
Exactly.
Well,
So-
but just like what you said, though, everybody wants gratification. Well, the gratification is not always the bird.
Well,
You know what I mean? But that's what people want.
Right.
If I buy this license and I spend $20 on this license, I better get a bird,
Right.
because if I don't, I'm not going to do it again. You know what I mean? And it's not that for me. I mean, if I can go out and hunt and get that bird in, yeah, the icing on the cake is to get a nice bird, to have that experience. But yeah, once again, it's the experience. It's being able to go out with your kid and share that experience
Right.
and or hunt buddies, be able to just do that. That's where it's at.
So how about that, Kevin? How do you feel? Do you, being a younger guy, do you feel the pressure that if you're out turkey hunting, that you're less of a hunter if you don't get a turkey?
Um, I I don't know if I would say that. I mean, that's my perspective. I could see why a lot of people in the younger generation that would be the way. But I mean, I was always raised to, like the way I was raised was, it was more. I mean, obviously the trophy is a big part of it, but the whole hunt and everything is just as big of a part. I mean, I don't. It's because it's weird. Like I said, like I don't know if there's a stigma around turkeys as opposed to deer. I mean, I do a lot more deer hunting than turkey hunting, but I just, you hear people say like, "Oh, every year we go to deer camp, and if we don't shoot anything, it's whatever." Like, okay, well, if it's okay to not shoot anything and just have fun at deer camp with your buddies or whatever, then why, why can't that be the same thing for turkeys? Like, is it just because it's not as popular? Is it, like I said, is there a negative stigma on turkey? Like I said, they're, yard birds, or they, maybe they tear up your yard or what, like maybe that's part of the reason there's a negative stigma on it. But like, I mean, for me, it's always been, the hunt and the experience and the whole thing is just as important, obviously, as the trophy or the kill. But I mean, equating it to like deer hunting, I mean, even people in my generation, like they have just as much fun going to deer camp for a week and hanging out with their buddies. And if they don't shoot anything, it's fine. But what changes when it comes to, turkeys or something else? Like, I'm not really sure. So, I mean, I do see that in a lot of things where people, I mean, everyone has their own idea of what hunting should be or is or whatever. But I mean, there's lots of people that say, "Oh, this was a terrible season because I didn't shoot anything." Well, that's one perspective on it. But I mean, there's been several years where I haven't shot anything, but just going out and filming the hunts or the experiences of, even if you had a close encounter with a nice deer or turkey or whatever and wasn't able to get it, doesn't mean it was a bad time.
Right.
So,
Well,
but I mean, so from my perspective, I don't see like not getting the trophy as, I mean, obviously that's one of the main reasons you're there is to try to take a trophy, but I don't see it that way. But I mean, like I said, I could be in the minority of people in the younger generation just because of my upbringing of, being able to cherish the whole process of the hunt and everything, not just the trophy.
well, I think you've done a good job at a young age to realize that, because it took me a lot of years. And I think there's a thing that I'll equate it to deer hunting is you harvest deer, you harvest bucks, you harvest things, and at a point you realize it's not about proving that you can. It's about enjoying the sport, enjoying the outcome. And for me, now the process is way more enjoyable. And it should be the same way with turkeys. It's the icing on the cake when you harvest your animal, but that shouldn't be the driving force to decide whether you succeeded or failed.
Right.
And so,
Well, and Gary, like you said, you hunted back the same way, and just like what Kevin's saying, a lot of people don't look at it, but when you get it, you guys did it as a group.
Oh yeah, there's.
I mean, you guys had like 3 or 4 guys that actually just went out and roosted different birds at different times and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, what you're talking about deer camp, I mean, it used to be like that.
Yeah. Oh, we used to
It
have
just-
fun at it.
It just really wasn't, even in my generation, really wasn't like that.
Right.
It
But
was
like Paul says, you got to get the younger generation involved in it somehow. That's if they could have the experience of sitting out in the woods and listening to one of them turkeys gobble the way they gobble and start coming in, and they could experience that once or twice. They're gonna get hooked.
No, I'm a firm believer in
I
that.
mean, that's just the way it is.
I've seen adults that had no desire to go turkey hunting, but as soon as they actually had a chance to go,
Yep.
They enjoyed it. I mean, it was just listening to that bird come in, and to me, and I've told people this before, I've had them so close to the blind, hunting blinds or whatever, that it's not even the gobble that got me. It's the drumming.
Right.
It's
yeah.
feeling that, and you could feel it. You could hear it right outside, and you
Right.
just knew they were close. To me, that was the excitement. That got me more excited than actually shooting the bird. You know what I mean? Just bringing them in that close where you could hear that drum. You could hear that, they gobbled all the way in, and your heart just starts going. But, yeah, I just think more people would actually get out and do it. Just like anything, I guess you would experience
You
that.
gotta put time in it and try it and do it.
And like I said, I mean, you got to have the people willing to do that, willing to take somebody out there and sacrifice their own time not to get a bird, which is probably another story, but a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people don't want to take, they're so self-centered. They're going to get this time off. It's going to be trying to fill their own tag. They don't care less if, you hadn't shot it. They shot a bird every year and you've never shot a bird. I would much rather take somebody out that's never shot a bird and sacrifice my own tag to take them out than, to give them that experience, because I think, Kevin's first bird, actually shot on your property. I mean, huge bird. He got ate up. I mean, his head was.
I had 80 mosquito bites all over me.
Yeah, you earned it.
But he did.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he didn't waver.
But
I mean, he sat right
I
there.
remember it forever, though.
But it was a huge bird. It was a 12-inch bearded turkey. I think it was huge.
It's a great bird.
But he never wavered. I mean, and that was just. But the gun knocked him over. But he was. What, 12?
That runs in the family, though.
Yeah,
Kevin.
yeah. I think I set everybody up that way. But no, but that was, that was an experience that, like you said, after all these years, it's something I can still remember that. I can still remember that. And he didn't waver. I said, man, he's just. Most people went through that. I mean, he was ate up with mosquitoes. His forehead. I mean, but most people would just say, "Forget it, I'm done."
Oh yeah.
But no, it was a good experience. But like I said, to be there for his first turkey, I mean, I'd love to be able to do that. I mean, that's just something
But
that
that's why a lot of people now don't even bother with that third hunt. Is you're talking mosquitoes. When the third hunt starts, you have all the undergrowth growing. You got mosquitoes. You got ticks. People would rather be out, and they are during that hunt, getting mushrooms. Trout fishermen cutting through the woods to go trout streams. All your RVs are starting up, and the third hunt isn't all what people think it is.
Well, it's just more, like I said, in today's age, everybody's so busy that it's just easier to have. If you want to hunt 4 or 5 days, you're going to probably end up taking that third hunt, just because most people cannot, unless you take a week off.
Right. Yep.
Just to turkey hunt. I mean, and most people don't. I don't.
And really, the third hunt, the weekends, I don't even hunt anymore on private or state land. It's just too busy. Mm-hmm. Not with turkey hunters, with people.
Yeah, ORVs. Yeah, because ORV in this area is crazy.
Where I hunt is crazy. Yeah. So I don't even, I might get invited to go over to Paul's. So you might call me and say, there's a bird there. Go ahead and hunt it. You might call me, or I know somebody who's got some private property, or I might have a bird on my place. I'll hunt them on the weekends. I won't. I really don't.
So I guess, going back to anybody out there that's just getting into turkey hunting, we've kind of went down several avenues and kind of how our hunting experience. But where would you think that if somebody was, we talk about just riding around roosting, but how do you roost a bird? I mean, how do you roost a bird? What calls would you use?
I don't call them. When you roost a bird, I go out and I set in an area where I know there's birds. And I like to park on a 2-track so I can see each way. And I go out about an hour and a half to 2 hours early before dark. And I like to sit there and watch that 2-track. And then I'll just sit and listen and listen. Normally, that time of year, the toms will gobble coming back to the roost, heading back. And you'll hear that gobble. I don't hunt turkeys in the evening. Some people do. I don't. Okay. But he'll gobble, and that's what he's doing. As soon as I hear that gobble, I'm in my truck and I'm gone, and I'm going to another area to roost. And the reason I do that, for just the same reason Paul said, there might be somebody, tomorrow morning I decided to go hunt that bird, there's going to be a car there. And it's going to be somebody that knew that bird was there, but he didn't roost that bird the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I try to have 2 setups, just for that reason.
Well, and I guess my history with that too is, I've used owl calls, especially around here where I know birds are roost, but maybe not roosting. Maybe they're roosting on my place. Maybe they're roosting on the neighbor's property. But, you get out there and just when they're flown up, you hit that owl call and, sometimes it doesn't work all the time. But
no, I use an owl call, but I wait until just before dark, and I'll use an owl call.
So an owl call would be your call of choice for anybody out there.
Right.
That would be, you get a good out practice with that or whatever.
I like a gobble hose once in a while too. Shake a gobble hose a couple times, and he hears another gobble. A lot of times he'll fire up too.
Is that just like a locator? Is that just to let him know that, hey, there's another?
Well, he'll gobble because he's, what's that tom doing in my area?
Right.
That's.
That's what I was getting at.
They're
kind
like deer, with a grunt call, But so I'll use that too. Owl and the gobble hose.
I've basically used owl calls. To roost. Try to roost them. Like I said, it doesn't always work.
No.
But knowing where those birds are.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Boy, that really helps.
Because I've actually, and I use my own property as an example. I'll go out there and I'll hit it, knowing that I've seen birds earlier, like a couple weeks, but haven't heard anything. So I'll go out there and hit it and won't hear nothing. But that next morning, they fire right up. They will not gobble off the roost for whatever reason, but that next morning I'm thinking, man, I don't even know if they're, if they moved on or got pushed out. But then they turn around and they're 50 yards from the house. You know what I mean? They're roosted. So, it just amazes me that, sometimes it doesn't work all the time, but really scouting, like you're saying, riding around, knowing that those birds are there.
Right.
Sometimes you won't get them to gobble. Is there anything that you do that?
No, a lot of times they just get quiet, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Do you go back then? Would you go back if you knew the birds were in that area, and let's say you went out there to roost them, you didn't see them? Would you still go back there knowing that those birds are working that area, even regardless?
Oh, yeah, I go back, yep.
So you would still set up. If you didn't see anybody, you would still set up in them woods and then wait for daylight or whatever to call.
I'd set up, and then when the songbirds start, I'd give a couple real light yelps, and then if I don't hear anything, I might get a little more aggressive, a little louder with my yelp, and then if I still don't get a gobble out of them, then I'll leave that area.
Going back to what you just said, why do you wait for the songbirds? What is that?
That's when everything wakes up and,
So that would be a technique to use if you were trying to figure out.
Right, the crows will start, a lot of times as soon as the first crow goes off, the turkeys start gobbling. I don't know why, but that's,
Right.
So.
I've noticed that, and like crows are the biggest one I've noticed in the morning, flying over and you can hear them gobble. That's why, going back to probably a mid-morning hunt,
right,
or afternoon hunt, like you said, you don't hunt afternoons.
Run and gun like I do is, that's
right
after the roost.
So a crow call would be your your go-to at that point. I mean, that midday. And we've talked about this before, but for anybody that's just getting into it, and I've made that mistake myself early when I was a lot younger, learning to call. You did the ride around call, see a bird, educate them to death, just trying to see if you can get them to gobble. But you're out there and you're running and gunning. You don't use a turkey call for the most part when you're trying to locate them on a run and gun. That's not your first call, I should say.
My first call is crow call.
Right. And why is that?
Well, because if he say there's a bird there, and if you use a crow call and he gobbles, well, he's not going to come to you. It's just a noise to him, so he's going to stay where he's at. That gives me time to get my gun loaded, take my time, go down the road, get away from the car, and then get set up and call him at an angle so he's not looking at the car, number one. He sees the car, the game's over,
Right.
But, so I have stopped and just went ahead and used a hen call, a yelp, and they fire up and they start coming right away. Well, the time you get back to your truck, load your gun, get your stuff, get your chair, starts to go, they've already spotted you. They either spotted your car or they spotted you moving through the woods. So the game's over. You set up and you call and you don't hear nothing. Well,
and I guess that's where, talking to you before, that was kind of one of the things, because, I mean, a lot of people want to use turkey calls to locate them. They get into the woods and they want to give a few yelps, but sometimes, I mean, that could hinder you more than it's going to help you.
It can burn you.
Yeah. If he's right there. Right. If he's quite a ways away and you got a chance to do that.
Oh, yeah. You got a chance.
So your first call would be crow call.
Still crow call.
Yeah.
Crow call, then a yelp is what I do.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess for our first podcast, I mean, we've covered a lot of different topics,
Right.
Some things that we didn't get a chance to cover, but I think we could get into setup on turkeys. I mean, we could spend another hour just talking about setups, and really after you've really roosted them and got that. I mean, we can start that on our next podcast. Really want to get into the setup of it. We've been about an hour now, but
I think setup and setting up decoys. There's
definitely a technique to that.
Yeah, I showed you that.
Yeah, and I think we can get into it depth on another one, but just as a little intro to that, just Jakes to Toms to only hens.
Right.
I've actually just went to hens.
Yeah.
Because I've had too many. I mean, now it's because of I try to hunt mostly with a bow. Now, if I get down there and I really got time I want to harvest or whatever, and I want to take it with a gun, I'll take it. But if I want to get one on film and filming, but for the most part, my first take is want to take it with a bow.
Right.
And sometimes, just at least, I've had them lock up too far away for the bow.
Right.
Even though I've tried to put my decoys, I guess when I hunted your place, I put them too close.
Right.
I put them too close to my blind and couldn't get over it when they've come in. Assuming that they're going to lock up, but like I said, different techniques of decoys. I think we've all used them in different ways.
Right.
But from just feeding hens to lay down hens, and I guess that's kind of where I'm at. But I guess we could save that for the next podcast, because like I said, there's a lot of calling techniques, and I guess for anybody that's wanting to listen and stuff, I think calling to me is where I think I struggled probably more than anything, is trying when to call, how often, when to shut up, which has always been a problem.
Over
for me. Right, Kevin?
Yeah.
overcalling is,
Yeah.
is the biggest thing, you know.
Well, I guess I mean that's something I was thinking. Even like deer hunting or whatever, you always think like you don't want to overcall, but then at what point is not calling at all hindering you as well? Like I mean, like being a if you're afraid to overcall, sometimes you don't call enough, or maybe just decide not to call at all because you're too afraid that you're going to overcall and you think you're going to do more damage than good. So,
Well, if you had a turkey gobbling, normally by the thumb of what you do is if he gobbles, you call. He gobbles, you call. You just continue doing that as he's coming in. Closer he gets, you got to just be a little less aggressive with your calls. As a matter of fact, when he gets about 50 yards away, I quit yelping, and I like to just go to the purr once in a while, and that's a relaxed state. The hen's in, she's eating, she's purring, she's scratching, and he'll come into that, 50, 60 yards away.
Yeah, and that purr is always. I bet you probably most of the birds that I've shot and was able to bring them in close was with the purr.
Yeah.
I mean, they've honestly responded. I mean, like I said, you get them to yelp, and I'm by far a turkey expert, but most of the ones that I've had come in close enough for us to harvest is that purr. That purr is what's really brought them in when they've seen the decoys. That's really what's done it for me. I mean, that's kind of my go-to when it gets to that point. When they get close. But yeah, so I think for our first podcast, I appreciate you guys joining it.
No problem.
I definitely would like to get everybody back to see if we can't talk a little bit more on the setup on turkey. Like I said, we've got a month. Maybe we can get one more in here. And if anybody wanting to listen and tune in, that we can do that. And for everybody out there, I would appreciate you guys all listening and stopping by the channel. But we're hopefully we'll get into a lot of different topics, from food plots to deer hunting. I mean, we've all hunted together for years, and we just like talking hunting. So I think for now, we're just going to sign out, and we will see you on the next podcast. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Good.